Right now, somewhere in the world, there's a baby, just a few days old, staring up at the ceiling. They can't talk, can't walk, can't even hold their own head up. But scientists have recently discovered something wild. That baby is probably already conscious, already having some kind of internal experience. The question nobody's ever been able to fully answer is, conscious of what exactly? What's actually going on in there before the first word, before the first thought they'll ever be able to remember? Let's go inside the mind of a newborn. For a long time, medical science genuinely didn't know if newborn babies were conscious of anything at all. That sounds insane today, but for decades, newborns went through medical procedures without anesthesia because part of the scientific community believed their brains were just too undeveloped to consciously process pain. We now know that was completely wrong. Recent research using brain imaging and EEG shows clear signs that newborns have conscious experiences from birth, and possibly even before that, while they're still in the womb. But here's the thing. That consciousness isn't anything like yours. It's not a tiny adult thinking slowly. It's a completely different kind of experience. And that's exactly where this gets fascinating. Let's start with vision, since it's the easiest thing to actually picture. A newborn doesn't see the world sharp and clear like you do. Their vision is blurry, with almost no depth of focus, only really able to make out what's a few inches from their face, which, conveniently, is exactly the distance to a mother's face during breastfeeding. That's not a coincidence. It's exactly what they need to see clearly in those first few days. Color doesn't show up fully either. The first few months are dominated by high-contrast black, white, and shades of gray. Color only fills in gradually after that. But here's the incredible part. Research using EEG shows that 5-month-old babies already have a different brain response when looking at a face considered attractive compared to that same face when it's visually masked. Their brain is already processing, already judging, already reacting, long before they have a single word to describe what they're looking at. And here's one of the most surprising parts of all this. Human consciousness starts forming while still in the womb, around 24 weeks of pregnancy, when the connections between sensory organs and the brain's cortex start coming online. That means a newborn already recognizes their mother's voice, already recognizes her scent, already recognizes instinctively patterns of rhythm and tone they've heard over and over for months while still inside the womb. When a mother talks to her newborn, that baby's brain isn't hearing some random sound. It's recognizing something deeply familiar, possibly the only familiar thing that exists in that exact moment, in a brand new world they've never experienced before. Just think about that for a second. Being born into a complete sensory whirlwind, and the one thing that actually makes sense is a voice you've already been hearing for months, from the only place you've ever known. Now here's the hardest part to wrap your head around, because it means forgetting completely how you think today. You organize the world into categories. This is a chair, this is my dad, this is daytime, this is nighttime. Everything has a name, a function, a fixed place in your mind. A newborn doesn't have any of that yet. They don't clearly, consciously distinguish where their own body ends and the outside world begins. Researchers describe this as a much more fluid kind of experience, without the rigid boundaries adults have between me and everything else. There's even an ability newborns have that adults completely lose. Babies can tell apart speech sounds from languages they'll never hear again in their life, including sounds from languages totally unrelated to their native one. But by around 10 months old, the brain decides those differences don't matter anymore and just throws that ability away, permanently. Which means newborns, for a short window of life, actually have broader sensory perception than they'll ever have again, and they lose it without ever knowing they had it. And here's the most intriguing question of all, one no scientist has been able to fully answer yet. Do newborns dream? There's a fascinating theory called the overfitted brain hypothesis, which suggests dreams work like scrambled up versions of everything we experienced while awake, a way for the brain to generalize what it's learned, so it can recognize patterns in brand new situations. A newborn hasn't really experienced anything yet outside their own body and their mother's voice. So if they do dream, what would that dream even be made of? Maybe just echoes of sound, maybe sensations of touch and temperature with no actual images attached. A dream with no plot, no face, no words, just pure sensation. Science still doesn't have every answer about what's actually happening inside a newborn's mind. But what we do know is already enough to completely change how you look at one. It's not an empty brain waiting to be filled. It's a genuine consciousness, processing an entire world with zero words to describe what it's feeling, living through what might be the purest, strangest experience a human being is ever capable of having. If this changed the way you look at babies, send it to someone who just became a parent. They're going to want to know this.